Yes, good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to you all. Yes, my name is Patrick Moshi. I'm the Communication Officer for the East African Business Council. I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. I hope I'm audible enough, and I welcome you all to this high-level e-conference on building a
Patrick,
resilient.
please, you are not audible enough.
Am I audible now?
Yes, much better.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes. Now, welcome to this high-level e-conference on building a resilient agricultural sector for a food secure EAC. This conference is organized by East African Business Council in collaboration with GIZ, SEQUA, and Business Scouts Fund. Today, we embark on an insightful journey towards a robust agricultural sector that ensures food security across East Africa community. Before we dive into the agenda, I would like us to look at the housekeeping rules or the ground rules that are going to guide us in this meeting. My colleague Gift, maybe if you can project the ground rules so that we may read them out. So the first ground rule is that we'll be contributing to the meeting goals today and be on point and on time. We'll focus on the topic, and the questions can be sent on the chat room. And this meeting will be recorded for reporting purposes and circulation to stakeholders. And the communique or the outcome of this report will also be shared. I kindly request all participants who are here today with us today to kindly mute your mic or video when you're not speaking so that we may have ample time or bandwidth to the speakers to be able to contribute their insights. I'd like also to highlight today's program. So on the program today, we'll start with some opening remarks from our high-level speakers and guests who are here with us today and experts. We'll start with remarks from our executive director, then we'll go to the head of international component at GIZ Business Scouts for development. We'll be having an official from the EAC Secretariat to also officially launch or officiate this high-level conference. We'll get presentation from our experts, Dr. Margaret Kemengich, a presentation on impact of global crisis on food security, and also a presentation on investment opportunities in agricultural value chains. We'll have question and answers to the presentations that will be made, and also the investment promotion authorities will also share their insights on the investment opportunities in East Africa. Also, we'll dive into a panel discussion on building a resilient agricultural sector from different experts that we have on board. I hope Mr. Stephen Mushiri is around from the Eastern Africa Farmers Federation. Also, Nega Wabehe from Africa Alliance for Green Africa Revolution. We'll be having an expert from German Agribusiness Alliance and Mr. John Mzinga from the Eastern and Southern African Small Scale Farmers Forum. Also, we're expecting a representative from Equity Bank to share some insights also. After that, we'll have some questions. We'll open the floor to questions to the panel and also have a short testimonial or a testimonial from our beneficiaries of the project which we are working on under GIZ Business Scout project. Then we'll officially launch the East Africa Agro Investment Profiles and Directory Portal, which enables B2B engagement. So that's the program for today. With those few remarks, I would now like to welcome Mr. John Bosco Kalisa, our Executive Director for the East African Business Council, to give his opening remarks. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Patrick, for moderating this session, whose theme is building a resilient agricultural sector for a food secure EAC region. Before I deliver my remarks, I would like to, first of all, recognize our partners, the representative of the Secretary General. I saw my brother Jean-Baptiste, the Director of Productive Sector, is with us. I recognize Iyala Chairperson Committee on Agriculture, Tourism and Natural Resources, Honorable Umukiza, EABC board members present, our good friend, Mr. Philip Grasse, the head of international component, GIZ Business Scouts for Development, the CEOs of our national focal points across the region, the representative from Eastern and Southern Africa Small-Scale Farmers Forum, my brother Stephen Muchiri, Eastern African Farmers Federation, EABC members, EABC Goodwill ambassadors present, the academia, industry, researchers, and other practitioners in the sector, the industry champions, agri-value chain actors, our development partners, members of media fraternity. Indeed, at the ABC, we are very excited in terms of having this engagement when we are talking about how do we build a resilient agriculture sector to secure our region from multiple shocks. There are those internal shocks, which we are well aware of, especially the climate change, but also the internal issues, internal conflicts. But there are also external shocks that also impacting heavily on our economies as well as agriculture sector. So I really take this opportunity to welcome you to this high-level conference on building resilient agriculture sector for a secure EAC. I would like on record to appreciate GIZ, the SEQUA, and the GIZ Business Scout. I see my sister Lydia present for your continued support to EABC and our members in enhancing competitiveness of agri-food industry and also mitigating the impact of global shocks for improved food security in the EAC region. I always say that our region is a home to almost 320 million people and almost 50 million people being confronted by acute and chronic food insecurity, mainly stemming from low productivity, degraded natural resources, gender inequality, and the external shocks, which Margaret will speak to, COVID conflicts, cost of living, as the recent Russia-Ukraine conflict. So the distinguished guests, really, I wanted to really thank you and appreciate you, and also highlight some of the areas that we need to focus on, especially looking at the solutions or mitigation measures we can undertake as a region to weather the storm emanating from the shocks, global shocks. On a positive note, I want again to put on record that EAC has heavily demonstrated a remarkable resilience to shocks. And that is very clearly indicated in a recent report by African Development Bank, which indicated that East Africa is recovering or rebounding quickly than other regions in the continent. And the recovery, again, is anchored strongly on our public-private partnership for the dialogue. That's why we are doing this with EAC, Secretariat, the Secretary General and the team are very supportive. We are doing this with our development partners, GIZ, Trademark Africa, and others. But so more to that, our leaders also are taking a proactive stance in terms of bringing policy interventions around rebuilding resilience. So we see that in a number of areas, but we need to double our efforts in terms of mitigating shocks. So I wanted to share with you that prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, ONRE Kenya had scored above average of 50.7 in 2019, followed closely by Rwanda at it scored 48.2 and Uganda 46.2. And at the height of the pandemic in 2020, only Burundi and DRC improved their scores. So it means that the COVID pandemic also had a detrimental effects on the food security in our region. In 2022, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania improved their scores following a quick adaptability to the pandemic. But overall, you look at the costs of a healthy diet in Eastern Africa, it has been increasing due to global shocks. And it is now estimated at around 3.36 per person per day in 2020. So the global shocks disproportionately impacted on women economic opportunities and access to nutritious foods. We are all aware that almost 60% of our population, women are the one engaged in agriculture. So the effects of these shocks fall squarely on women and youth, perhaps more than men. Another sector, we still see that its contribution, despite that the region is pushing much and on services and manufacturing, but agriculture still contributes around 25% of our GDP. And it employs more than 63% of our labor force. So it is still an important sector in our development. So we need really to focus on it. So in order to cope up with emerging global crises and enhance EAC agri-food systems and build the resilience, the EAC should increase and diversify food production and expand extra-regional trade in agriculture. We need to improve food value chains to reduce food waste and increase access to nutritious food. When I talk about food waste, currently when you look at the post-harvest losses, it amounts to almost 40% of our output, so our yields. So we must really come up with systems how to reduce post-harvest losses by investing heavily in infrastructure, agriculture-related infrastructure. So we need also to strengthen social safety nets and to support vulnerable population, address the inflation and affordability of health diet, strengthen transportation infrastructure, and address the gender inequality. So as we design new intervention, and I think those are very important aspects that we need to look into. But it is also, there is an urgent need to build agro-food system in the region that provide reliable access to safe, nutritious, and affordable food, which would be able to create decent jobs and promote equity and maintain healthy and a thriving ecosystem. So a holistic thinking and a collective action to end hunger in East Africa is paramount. So we need to ensure that in all our intervention, we need to embed resilience aspects or resilience tools within our agriculture system. So, distinguished guests, I urge you to effectively contribute in the panel discussion, B2B engagement, via the agro-investment profiles and directory that we have established. So EABC in partnership with FECWA and the GIZ Business Scout for Development is very much committed to work with all stakeholders in order to build a resilient agriculture sector for food secure East Africa and the entire African continent. So I look forward to your communique. I look forward for your deliberation. And I want to thank you for your kind attention, and I wish you a very fruitful deliberation. Asanteni sana, God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. John Bosco Kalisa, for those insightful strategies on how we can improve and end hunger in East Africa region. And now I would like to welcome Mr. Philip Glesser, the head of international component, GIZ Business Scouts for Development. Welcome, Mr. Philip.
Thank you very much. Yeah, dear Mr. John Bosco Kalisa, EABC Executive Director, representatives of the East African community, representatives from the East Africa Legislative Assembly, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Philip Gläser. I'm the head of the international component of the GIZ Business Scouts for Development program, and it's a great pleasure to attend this important meeting. And thanks again for having us here. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our partners, the East African Business Council, and all other stakeholders for organizing and taking part in this event. This shows a great sense of commitment in the region to address the challenges of food security. In May 2022, the Federal Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany and the World Bank President launched a global alliance for food security in the G7 group as a way of combating global food insecurity. Among others, the key focus area is the long-term transformation of global food systems, especially agri-food systems, to be more resilient and sustainable by strengthening local production and regional trade. Our program, Business Scouts for Development, as some of you may know, is implemented by GIZ on behalf of the German government through the Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, the BMZ. With the network of our programs, such as the German Agribusiness Alliance, the Federation of German Food and Drink Industries, the Federation of German Industries, as well as the German Organic Food Production Alliance, we are promoting sectoral exchange and know-how transfer that will reposition and strengthen the competitiveness of the agri-food sector in East Africa, particularly the MSMEs. We are proud that our collaboration with EABC through the Business Scouts Fund, which is managed by SEQA, is addressing some of the challenges the agri-food industry in East Africa is facing, as well as fostering transformation of the agri-food industry. With a collaborative approach, we shall reach a sustainable, resilient agricultural and food production system, which will reduce over-independence on imported food supplies, as well as ensure sufficient and affordable locally supplied food. The East Africa region, so as the other parts of the world, has faced a number of crises such as climate change, COVID-19 pandemic, and other socio-political crises that had disrupted the food value chains. We shall promote investment opportunities available in the agri-food industry so that the region is prepared for future crises. We would like to take this opportunity to commend the government of the EAC region for their efforts to promote food security. In the November summit of the East African community, heads of state who witnessed action points agreed on such as the use of modern technology to reduce post-harvest losses and increase investment in climate-smart agriculture and renewable energy to mitigate the impact of climate change. Let's keep the ball rolling, put ideas into action while fostering regional and global exchange to share experiences that will transform the agri-food industry. With these remarks, I would like to thank EABC once again and all our partners in East Africa and wish everyone an interactive experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Philip, for those insightful remarks and calling for more collaboration at regional and knowledge sharing both at regional and global experiences. Thank you very much. Now I would like to welcome the official from the EAC Secretariat, Director of Productive and Social Sectors, Director Jean-Baptiste, to officially officiate this meeting. Director? Director Jean-Baptiste, we can't hear you. Maybe if you unmute your mic.
Patrick, I suggest we proceed with others so that if he's able to join, we can give him a chance to speak.
Okay, thank you. So as we await for the official from the EAC Secretariat to officiate this meeting, I'd like to welcome Dr. Catherine Tindiwensi, the expert on investment, to do a presentation on investment opportunities in agricultural value chains. I'd like to request my colleagues to also present her presentation on her behalf. Dr. Catherine, you're welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to confirm if you can hear me.
Doctor,
Yes,
we can hear you very well, very clear.
Great. Okay, yes, thank you. You can see my screen as well?
Yes, yes, yes.
Great, yeah. So Dr. Catherine Tindiwensi.
Please make it screen.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, maybe if you can put it in slide mode, in larger size, yeah.
Okay, and as I change the slides, you can see the change in the slides. Okay, yes, so I'm Dr. Catherine Tindiwensi. I'm an agribusiness development consultant based in Kampala. And I was contracted early this year to look at the investment opportunities in the selected agricultural value chains. And this study focused on 5 value chains. We had the wheat grain value chain, we had edible oil value chain, which looked at oil palm, sesame, and soya. We also looked at leguminous plants. These were mainly beans. And we had tubers. We looked mainly at cassava and Irish potato and fertilizers value chain. And in terms of just an overview, we found that wheat grains, about 70% of the wheat in the East African community is grown in Kenya. And that is a big percentage for one country. And then we looked at Uganda and Tanzania also producing some wheat grain.
Sorry, Dr. Catherine.
Yes, please.
If you may stop sharing and then share again, because we are still stuck on slide 12 and we don't see your slides moving. So if you can just stop sharing and reshare again and then start from slide 1.
Okay, I hope it will move as I move along. Let me reshare.
Oh, Doctor, you can give it to my team, send it to Frank. Or
I had already sent it to Frank.
Okay, then my colleague Gift is going to share.
Yeah, he can while he's speaking, let's Gift to do that.
Okay, but then they would also need to look at to get the, okay, let me see how to get that. Just a second. Okay, let's continue as they share. The interest
no, it is on, Catherine. It is on. It is shared already.
Okay.
We are on page number 3.
Yes, I can see it. Yeah. So I was saying that just in terms of overview, wheat grains, about 70% of the wheat in the East African community was grown in Kenya, then followed by Uganda and Tanzania. And in terms of the edible oil, Tanzania and Uganda are the leading producers, especially in terms of sesame, soybean, sunflower, and palm oil. Then in terms of the fertilizers value chain, we found that there are reserves for fertilizer raw materials in the East African community in terms of the natural gas and phosphorus in Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda and Rwanda. And the tubers, we found that Kenya and Tanzania are the leading producers of potatoes, and the DRC is the main producer of cassava. Leguminous plants, Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda were the leading producers of beans, while groundnuts were also produced mainly in the DRC and Tanzania. Next. We also looked at the operating environment. Like it was mentioned also in the keynote addresses, we see that there is fastest growing region in the continent, the East African community. And we saw that the GDP growth for Kenya, for Rwanda, for Tanzania, there is growth, which is positive for anyone who is interested in investing in such country. In terms of foreign direct investment, there is a slight increase in total foreign direct investment in the region. During the time, what we could get was between 2015 and 2021. However, we noted that most of the foreign direct investment was in DRC, Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya, and mainly in the manufacturing sector, not necessarily the agribusiness sector. In terms of the legal framework, we have the East African Treaty, which is the binding framework for cooperation, and to promote the East Africa as a single investment area. Also, the East African community, of course, is part of the COMESA and the East African SADC tripartite free trade area, which provide favorable environment for investment. Also, in terms of investment climate, we can have access to market of about 177.2 million people. That was then probably the population could have increased. So which also gives us a strategic location. We have natural resources, we have peace and security, largely in most of the countries, and there are simplified investment procedures. There is existence of investment promotion agencies almost in all the countries. And each partner state has gazetted export processing zones and special economic zones. There is also abundance of labor, which is educated, trained generally, mobile, skilled, and enterprising. And they were specific in setting, but we could pass that. Could go to the next slide. So these are the key players as far as promotion of investment in the region is concerned. In Burundi, we have Burundi Investment Promotion Authority. In Kenya, we have Kenya Investment Authority. In Rwanda, we have Rwanda Development Board. In South Sudan, we have South Sudan Investment Authority. We have Tanzania Investment Center. We have Uganda Investment Authority. We have Zanzibar Investment Promotion Agency and the East African Community Secretariat, and of course the East African Business Council. And we looked at the challenges, because some of these challenges, if you turn them around, they become opportunities. And we came up with about 5 major challenges. The first one was in terms of low production and productivity. And this mainly related with the quality seed, the quality of the seed to enhance productivity. There were issues to do with weather. We talked about climate change, financial resources, and general inputs into the production process. We have issues of technology development and transfer. That is research and development. There is limited access to financing to actually enable the investors to do adequate R&D. There is also a challenge of technology access and the cost, especially in farm machinery, in agro-processing machinery, so that we are able to come up with the competitive products. Then we have issues to do with post-harvest management and storage. This is in terms of infrastructure, investment capital issues, big issues with standards, quality standards of our products, and the cost of electricity was generally high. In terms of trade and marketing, there were also challenges of non-tariff barriers and the administration of the technical barriers to trade. And we found that most of the investors have similar similar industrial capacity in the region, which creates direct competition, but also there were issues with market information and road network. Then we had next specific challenges that relate to policy. Yes, we found that in terms of policies, there is inadequate framework and weak cross-border cooperation in the East African partner states to promote trade that could be enhanced. And we also found that we have limited capacity of the regulatory agencies to carry out their duties effectively. There was also lack of clarity and effectiveness of trade and certification procedures between the East African countries. And this is a question of policy that could be improved, and also poor coordination of actors along the value chain due to inadequate data and information on initiatives along the value chains across the East African community, if you have to look at the East African community as a block. I think these ones I may have to share them from this side, the business opportunities. If you could stop sharing and I quickly share this. It is just in a minute. Yes.
Proceed, Doctor.
Yes, it is a one page and I think you can see it. So in terms of opportunities, what are these opportunities? We looked at each value chain, and in the edible oil value chain, we need to look at production and distribution of quality seed. That is a gap that can actually be taken up on a commercial scale, and commercial production of the edible oil crops, issues to do with irrigation software and hardware, dehydrating of sesame seeds, livestock feeds, processing of oil from seeds of the oil crops, import and export business of seeds and oil. If you can still hear me, first of sesame and groundnuts,
Just a second, please. I kindly request all participants who are not presenting to kindly mute the mic. Gift, kindly mute the mics of those who are not presenting.
Thank you.
Yes, no. Yes, Doctor, proceed.
Investment in snacks, bread, cookies, pastries, and warehousing, milling of soya flour and blending it with other cereals, and manufacture of soaps. At the wheat grain value chain, there is also need for multiplication and supply of quality seed, commercial production of wheat, and there are opportunities in the bakery industry, putting up animal feed plants, export and import of wheat flour, processing of wheat flour, production of breakfast cereals and pastries, and making of biofuel, as well as packaging materials. Then in terms of the leguminous plants, we also look at the opportunity at the level of certified seed, cleaning and storage, aggregation, processing of the common beans, also looking at processing specialized beans like pre-cooked beans, which are mostly imported into the region, the export of the common beans, also groundnut seed, extraction of oil from groundnuts paste, confectionaries, and control of aflatoxins in the groundnut value chain is a big opportunity that is still not yet exploited. In terms of the tuber value chain, this was mainly cassava and Irish potato. We need quality seed, making of potato crisps, frozen chips and chilled chips, high quality cassava flour, cassava starch, brewing cassava beer, and also looking at using the cassava as a raw material in the pharmaceutical industry and also in the manufacture of bioethanol. Then the fertilizer value chain, we saw that we have the results, but there is need to exploit and look at fertilizer manufacturing, fertilizer blending and repackaging. There are also opportunities in the organic and natural liquid fertilizers, warehouse construction and storage, fertilizer importation, fertilizer making, raw material production, and fertilizer analytical labs, making the biofertilizers, and buying and selling of fertilizers. So these are some of the opportunities. And in terms of, we also looked at in terms of attractiveness, where do we actually find who should be able to invest where in the East African region. If you can also look at my next slide, this is a short one. So we found that in terms of investing in the sesame, mostly this would be in Tanzania and Uganda. They are more placed to provide competitive opportunities. For soya, of course, there are other opportunities like irrigation software and importation that can be done in all. In terms of soybean, again, we find Uganda and Tanzania and Uganda are most competitive in terms of oil extraction and manufacture of biofuel, but also a number of opportunities can be done in all the East African community member states. Sunflower, Tanzania and again and Uganda, but wheat we find that it's mainly in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, DRC, Congo, and fertilizers. This is mainly Tanzania and Kenya because of their nearness to the sea and the ocean. But tubers, we looked at Burundi, Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, literally all can produce the potatoes, and but high quality cassava flour could be better placed in Tanzania, Uganda, and DRC Congo. Then the leguminous plants, again, Burundi, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Kenya, Uganda, in that kind of order. So that is how we found the attractiveness. If Frank can still share the remaining part of where we had reached on the previous one. So based on that, we came up with some conclusions, and we find that we conclude that with increased investment in the agricultural value chains, in those opportunities we've identified, this will create more employment, which is a challenge in the region, increase demand for inputs and services, ensure import substitution, and contribute to more revenue generation for the East African community partner states. And we also see a number of policy instruments that exist but need to be harnessed to ensure that the value chains are developed. And attracting investments will require concerted effort from the partner states to work closely with the development partners and the private sector. But also, the opportunities that were identified might require, most of them might require specific detailed feasibility studies. And we make recommendations. These are recommendations made to the member states, put effort to implement the existing policies and do regular policy reviews to update on the current environment, increase agriculture sector funding, develop robust seed production and distribution systems, support formation of effective farmer groups and innovative platforms, especially that cut across the East African community, further improve investment incentives to attract investors, including also domestic local investors, supporting financial inclusion, strengthening market information and intelligence for better market access, and finance and popularize agriculture insurance. That has been cutting across all the value chains, and also support technology development and digitalization in the agriculture sector, the capacity building in the sector, mitigate the negative effects of climate change. It is a long list, but also we look at strengthening institutional linkages, strengthen PPPs, and improve infrastructure with the aim of reducing the transaction costs. So those are some of our recommendations as far as exploiting the opportunities in the agricultural value chains in the East African community. Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Catherine. for the elaborate presentation on the investment opportunities in agricultural value chain in East Africa. Now, I would like, as we wait for the other speakers to be ready, I'd like to open the floor for questions to Dr. Catherine on any investment or any inquiry that you may have. You're welcome to ask questions. You can also post the chat room if you'd like. You may raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. Thank you. Yes, welcome, Mr. John Bosco Kalisa.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, and thanks to Dr. Catherine for highlighting the investment opportunities in the various value chain, and really ably highlighting the challenges within the value chain. Perhaps if Catherine, you could highlight why the private sector is not fully involved, given all these opportunities. Why is it has not picked appetite or to invest in those value chain despite the potential? Perhaps you may also comment on legal and regulatory environment that may impede the private sector to able to take advantage in those sectors.
Thank you, Eddie. One of course, there are internal considerations when it comes to the private sector considerations. And one of the issues that seems to be, for example, if I give an example of Uganda, where I'm more conversant, but also what is reflected in the literature, and some of the issues to do with the taxation policies, some of them could be at the internal level, at the national level. That is an area that needs to be harmonized, especially also bearing in mind the other challenges that my colleague will highlight, like COVID, what happened with COVID, and these are, so there is also still that limitation in terms of the taxation policy. And I think that is one of them. Then the other one is what I mentioned in the presentation, to do with access to finance. The access, yes, may be there, but also the cost of finance is also an issue. So as we talk about technology, then the cost of capital should also be a consideration. And that's why it was mentioned in one of the recommendations to look at that inclusiveness. Agricultural financing should be given like special consideration to enhance investment in that sector. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Catherine. We also have a question from Paris, and she is asking what is being done in terms of providing a legal framework that works across the borders. Doctor?
Hello?
Yes, we have a question. We have a question from Paris, and she's asking what is being done in terms of providing a legal framework that works across the borders.
Well, the policy framework, we have there are different kinds of frameworks that would aim at harmonizing. For example, in terms of the taxation, the import taxes that cut across the different countries. So the policy framework is there, but the harmonization is where we have a challenge in terms of the details and its administration. If, for example, produce is moving between the different border posts, so that is where we still have gaps to address in terms of the policies.
Okay, thank you. We also, maybe I welcome Dr. Joe to ask his question. Dr. Joe?
Yes, this is Joe. I'm at least participating in the USA. I have a question. I want to first thank Dr. Catherine for her elaborate and succinct presentation, and I also want to thank the council, the East African Business Council, for the great job that they are doing. My question, I have three questions. The first is that the USA imports a lot of cassava. I don't know whether the quantity which is being produced in the sub-region is such that efforts can be made towards its export to the USA. Secondly, the cassava is used, especially the juice, is used for baby food supplements. Are there efforts to see that we have manufacturing companies in the sub-region? And the third one just went off my head. Okay, when I remember, I will ask it. I think for now, those two are okay. Am I clear?
Yes, I will answer partly, and then maybe someone from the East African Business Council may also supplement on my submission. The cassava to be imported into the USA, most of the products that we are producing in the East African community, generally we have the challenge of quality. It is, we mentioned it at the marketing and trading, one of the trading and marketing challenge. It is the quality of our products, the issues to do with packaging and presentation. So that is still a gap to be able to take advantage of such opportunities in the US or any other export market. Then the effort, if there are any efforts being made, my understanding is that having such kind of dialogue is part of the efforts to disseminate the findings so that potential investors can actually tap into this and take follow-up action so that we are able to exploit these available opportunities. Maybe someone from the East African Business Council could expound on that.
No, let me attempt, Dr. Catherine, to respond to some of the issues raised by Joe, my good friend Joe from the US. Indeed, I think Catherine, in his detailed study, indicated various uses of cassava. But also she highlighted the issue of seeds, the quality of seeds, which also presents an opportunity for investment. Even before we talk about exports, can we really think about feeding ourselves? So the challenge we are grappling with as a region is first to feed ourselves. Why do we import things that we should be exporting? As Joe mentioned, there is a lot of potential around those five value chain that have been ably highlighted by Catherine, but we cannot even feed our own citizens. So it's a paradox, and I think this is where we are coming up with a program, a detailed program to work with all the partners, our development partner, GIZ, Business Scout, but also with our government in terms of streamlining our policy interventions. And I think Perry mentioned it, and this is it. We have a common market, we have a customs union, and recently we even raised our external tariff to a force band structure to provide the opportunity for investors to take advantage or do what we call recapturing regional market or import substitution. So what we need to do really is refocus on the seeds, improve the seeds, quality of the seeds. And I think a colleague from Agra will mention what they are doing around the seed sector. But also our soil is degenerating. Currently, 45% of our soil is not suitable for agriculture. And that frustrates the smallholder farmers. So we need to really use technology, use the right fertilizer in terms of the soil. I think finally, on the legal and regulatory framework, Perry mentioned, we are pushing as EABC, this is our work. We've been trying to see that there is a need to be what we call regulatory convergence and regulatory harmonization. If you look at the SPS measure, you look at the standards, countries are still working in silos. So we need to eliminate that. We need to work and market the region as a single investment destination, as Catherine mentioned. It is there in the documents, but it's not happening on the ground. We need to create champions. We need to create regional clubs. We need to highlight these issues of policy inconsistency, policy arbitrage. The issue of legal and regulatory need to be harmonized and aligned. So I think that is the opportunity, and enormous opportunities within the region, but also at the continent. And we can, EAC can be a food basket for the entire continent within those highlighted 5 value chain.
Yes, thank you very much, CEO. Now I would like to welcome the last question from Dr. Maggie Kigozi. Dr. Maggie, you're welcome to ask your question.
Thank you very much. You can hear me?
Yes, you're loud and clear.
Okay, I first wanted to thank Dr. Catherine. A wonderful presentation. I used to promote investment about 12 years ago at the Uganda Investment Authority, and certainly I didn't have those kinds of details as she has presented to us, so thank you very much. I wanted to talk a little bit about the systems and the information for agriculture and how available it is to the farmer, especially those of us who are not traditionally farmers, and to share an experience with BIDCO, the palm oil project in Uganda, where we still import like 80% of the palm oil, the crude palm oil for processing in Uganda. So there is a drive to be able to grow more palm oil. So as a farmer who has land somewhere, it was very easy for me. BIDCO had the seedlings. There was our association of the farmer grow opal, us the palm oil farmers. There is an association which has, collects the funds and is able to give you all the information, the transport, everything was so perfect. And of course, we use IT. ICT has made such a difference to agriculture. Maybe, Catherine, some opportunities in ICT for agriculture would be a good addition to your presentation. But the fact that you can pay online, you don't really have to be there, is such a wonderful happening that I see agriculture in our region now going to be able to move, as long as the seeds are catered for. You have a good seed and all this other information that you need. So yes, I just wanted to bring that up to share with you that this is happening, and it is making it easy for us to now go into agriculture, commercial agriculture, and do the various products. So I wanted Catherine to touch on the role of ICTs in agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Maggie Kigozi.
Thank you, Doctor, for that supplement. And we'll add that to the recommendations, look at the ICT and how it actually enables the business processes in the agricultural sector. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Catherine, and all the people who asked questions and the great responses. Now I would like to welcome the next presenter, Dr. Margaret Kemengich, who will do a presentation on impact of global crisis on food security in the East Africa community. Dr. Margaret Kemengich, I hope you're on board.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yes. My colleagues, kindly, if you can project our presentation.
Yeah, please project for me. What?
Dr. Margaret, we have shared your presentation. Hope you can see it.
Actually, it disappeared from the connection. I'm trying to get back.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why it snapped out on me. Can you enlarge it? Hello?
It is on presentation mode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all. My technology failed me. So I know I'm joining later and I will have to be helped on the other side. If you can move to the next slide. So as on the impact of the global crisis on EAC food security, I first of all have highlighted that globally countries are interdependent on food security through trade. However, we have the economic, environmental, and the socio-political shocks impact on global food security because they do impact on trade potentials. And as an example is that the global food situation deteriorated with the perennial shocks since 2015. And the focus we have now is the COVID-19, the Russia-Ukraine war, and the climate change, and a number of other insecurity issues which have disrupted food systems, and in particular, production, trade, affordability, and access. And the major challenge as far as food security is concerned is really climate change, where the global warming is now increasing, and coming along with it is the flooding, droughts, and all the others. And these have multiplier effects on both hunger, food insecurity, poverty, income levels, scarcity of natural resources. So we now have to adopt a global agenda to manage greenhouses because we've said climate change is a major one. That way now we can handle a few issues associated with food access. And during these periods of either insecurity or climate change, food prices normally skyrocket. And because the EAC is among countries which are net food importers, they have a major challenge. So what were the findings from the study? Now the study did indicate that in the case of EAC, agriculture is not only for providing food, it provides livelihoods to millions of the people, and this is a key contributor to the regional economy. Unfortunately, EAC is a net food importer, and despite the fact that the region and the national governments have visions, have policies, have interventions, we are still importing food. Unfortunately, also, the region is prone to natural environmental disasters in form of drought, landslides, invasion by locusts, conflicts, insecurity, some of which are localized. Then the other challenge is the case of input costs. And unfortunately, most of these are imported. So when there is a global crisis, we cannot access the input costs. The inputs, thank you. And the net effect,
This slide is just to dramatize the effect of COVID-19. All the inputs which we are importing in support of agriculture have all gone up. That is the energy, the oils, the beverages, other foods, fertilizer, all of them which are critical for food security have actually skyrocketed, especially with the COVID, and the Russia-Ukraine war didn't make it any easier. The prices have gone through the roof. Continue. And that slide is just again to re-emphasize the prices, the food prices, as it were from 2020 to 2022. Much as they had gone down previously, they have now gone up just because of those disruptions. And that goes to demonstrate that we are interdependent, and we are, as EAC, we still depend on the global markets for both our inputs and for our net food requirements. Continue. Now we have similar staple foods, and that is in the cereals, rice and wheat are imported. The others are locally produced, the maize, the millet and the sorghum. We also have roots and tubers, that is potatoes, cassava, and the legumes, beans, lentils, and soya beans. So those ones are produced locally. Our major undoing is that our agriculture is still rain-fed. So at the times when there is climate change shocks in form of droughts and floods, our agriculture suffers, and at the end of the day, we are food insecure. So you can see the role of climate change as it impacts on our food security in the EAC. Continue. Nevertheless, EAC has adopted food policies and food security strategies. Quite a number of them are underpinned by our participating and adopting global continental agriculture food policies in the form of SDG 2030, which is especially SDG 2, which says we need to end food insecurity, improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. Agenda 2063 through CARDIP, where we are saying galvanizing support to build resilient, sustainable food systems for food security and nutrition in Africa. The EAC Vision 2050, with a strong pillar on agriculture, food security, and rural development. The WTO also, through the rules, support efficient markets by facilitating trading, including doing away with the subsidy schemes. Then the regional agriculture food policies and strategies promote and support agriculture policies on food nutrition, dietary requirements in order to sustain health and rural development and livelihoods. And also goes to the next stage of saying leverage trade, local, regional, and global, to bridge any food gaps. The national agriculture food policies and strategies similarly leverage a myriad of natural resources in plant and animals to secure food security and importation of key foods not locally available, and accessibility and affordability of essential foods, including distributing food for the needy. Then there are also management of environmental disasters in sustaining agriculture ecosystems in support of food policy. This would look at climate change, address issues of insecurity, perennial insecurity, address issues of biodiversity. Continue. Then how has EAC policy framework supported food security? The major one is market access initiatives. there are those regional frameworks in which food is looked into with their priority lenses, then continental, global, and the national frameworks. More important is the policy frameworks, and that is harmonizing regional and national policies with regard to legal, regulatory, and the technical requirements in agriculture and food security. Then making sure that the food systems in production, aggregation, processing, distribution, consumption, and disposal of food products are harmonized equally and adopted across the region. Then there is the issue of monitoring food security and identifying the needy regions and areas and populations for the food redistribution. Then adoption of national nutritional food policies, fiscal policies, whereby you work on social safety nets and assistance to improve poorer households, access food, and facilitate expansion of climate resilient agriculture production and support quicker recovery from any adverse climate events. Then there is also the major issue of addressing gender inequality in the food system, especially to the children and the women. Then there is also the value addition strategies, where it at least supports increased farm and off-farm enterprises and to create both opportunities, lengthen shelf lives of the food crops, then strengthen disaster risk prevention and management with sustainable utilization of natural resources and improving post-harvest handling, agro-processing, and value addition. More importantly, is to build peace building and early warning systems, investing in agriculture aggregation infrastructure, discouraging land fragmentation, and improving food handling processes. So there are quite a number of issues. Now, with all that in place, how have the global crisis from COVID, Ukraine, climate change, limited food access? And we are saying in the recent quantities have been negatively affected. And more important, it was the travel bans during COVID-19. And in the Ukraine-Russia war was now bottlenecks in the supply chains, in that muchas were importing the wheat and rice from the two countries. The war disrupted the supply chains, and as such, there were restrictions for the food until alternative routes had to be employed. The other one is when there are those climate change vagaries, there were export restrictions and bans. Then there was soaring input costs for both fertilizer fuel and the transport costs. Then even locally, because of the containment measures, there was a limited regional cross-border trade, which has all along been handled by SMEs. And most of the majority of the SMEs are women and the youth who earn their livelihoods besides meeting the food security. Then there have also been additional taxes, especially from the import countries, licenses on exports and the conflicts. We have already talked of the climate change and the effects it has on livelihoods. Continue. So this slide is basically to bring out the effect of climate change in particular. How has it affected food security? The first slide at the top is the one where we have had disasters, either floods or droughts. And you can see that from 2015, that was at its worst. Then there was also the precipitation. The rains have become lower. And you can see the food production much as we had, picked up in 2019, going to 2020, because 2019 there was some flooding, the food production went down. And once the food production went down, and we had less imports on account of COVID-19 and the Ukraine war, prices started soaring. That is the third, the second level first slide. And during those times when there is less production and we have a challenge on importation, there is higher imports by the countries, and you can see Burundi, Kenya are among the countries which had to meet their gaps, food gaps through importation. And this quickly translates into indicators of lower food values, for example, child nutrition and the rest of them. So that one is, this slide is giving a web on how all these aspects are going together, and the net result being really poor performance indicators. Continue. And this one to make sure that we can just zero in on the EAC climate change. And since agriculture is rain-fed, so anytime there is a drought, agriculture suffers. Anytime there are landslides, even where you've planted, it also goes. And you can see from the slides that the worst periods were 2011, 2016, 2019, and 2020. And that in most of those areas, especially during drought, in addition to the crop being impacted, equally livestock is impacted, and livestock is a critical food element, especially among the pastoralist communities. So quite a number of these, so that we have the agricultural areas and the pastoralist areas, climate change is the one which has the highest impact. Continue. And in the case of the food production, you can see that, between 2014 and 2017-18, because of climate change, production was very low. It picked up in 2018 and 2019, but again reduced after the COVID in 2020. Continue. So what are the challenges in the agriculture in EAC? Our high dependency on rain-fed agriculture, which means we can never practice agriculture and through irrigation. Then we have small landholder-based agriculture, so you cannot even use technology. We have the high input costs, the transport costs, which are prohibitive, especially on freight costs, limited irrigation opportunities, and the climate change, which has now, more frequent. There is low technology, the farm or post-harvest losses. We have very little in storage capacities. Even when there is a bumper crop, you can not store it for lean seasons. We have poor husbandry, crop practices. There is, insecurity, which may not even be from the global setting, but localized, and the conflicts, political instabilities. We also still have trade bans, and for most countries in the EAC, they have the challenge of debt. There is still divergent partner state food policies. Much as we have regional frameworks, we still practice individual country policies. Then there are those pandemics which slow down economic, and with a special focus on COVID-19. There are skill gaps, which now all of these taken together heighten poverty, hunger, with the implication on nutritional challenges. Thank you. Okay. So what are some of the policy recommendations? Instead of going singularly, we need to take a multi-sectoral approach in addressing food security and ensuring there is food availability, there is increase in yield, there is diversification in the value chains, and this would now really come quickly, because in the study we realized we have what we call orphan crops, which were really traditional crops like the millets, the sorghums, and the rest, where we've even put less land on those crops. So we are now saying really there is need to put more land on those crops because they are drought resistant, and since we have a climate change situation which is intensifying, we need now to put more of those crops. We have also the roots and the tubers. We need to put them onto land, and then we need to diversify our food baskets to include the early maturing, drought-resistant crops. Then we also need to prioritize local innovations complemented with incentives and create systems, because there used to be traditional ways of preserving food for longer use. Then we need also to create more opportunities for the SMEs, the youth, and the women, and make sure that they are engaging with the large companies, especially on the value chain development. Since we have regional frameworks, we need now to leverage trade and make sure that at least where there are surpluses, they are taken to the service deficit areas. And the more important now is really investing in value addition and blending, fortification in the local staple foods so that we can increase the shelf life, deploy technology, do more of irrigation, fortification, use of mobile apps to monitor food availability, provide trading options and information access. Then we need to adopt high-yielding seed varieties, which means we need now to invest more in research so that we can see what crops are available locally, what we can use as substitutes for the imported crops. Then we need to strengthen our food systems by scaling up agriculture and the distribution infrastructure. Where feasible, let's target insurance schemes for purposes of access and also coverage in the case of climate change vagaries. Then we need to do a lot more of capacity building and institutional strengthening. And the more important is the fact, if you look at the slides, we have very small, on the top slide, a very small land allocation to bananas. But when you come on crop yields, the bananas do very well in spite of that small. So you can see we can do a lot more on those crops. Those were some of the orphan crops, so that you see now on the land allocation and on the yield. This way it helps us to choose what crops we can promote to make sure that we are food secure. Continue. Now that brings us to the end. The other slides are not meant for presentation because they were just going in what should at country level be done. This is in the main report. It actually just strengthens what can be done at country level. For example, in Burundi, you need associations and cooperatives. In the DRC is really the policy framework. In Kenya is building self-reliance, while in Rwanda you need to invest in nutrition, and in Uganda upscale research, URT, domestication, of the regional commitments and South Sudan investment in expanding agriculture because the land is very fertile. These were the regional policies. These ones we've already covered. The others are national. We have covered them. The major slide was what is to be done at country level to meet food security. That brings us to the end of what it is we need to do in as far as policies are concerned in order to address the challenges in the marketplace. Thank you all, and my apologies for my technology which failed me. My laptop was updating everything that needs to be updated in the systems.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Margaret Kemengich, for the elaborate and insightful presentation on the impact of global crisis on food security. I kindly request you to remain online as I invite the panelists, and we'll be able to open the floor for questions once we are done with the panel session on building a resilient agricultural sector in East Africa. So as we start, maybe I would like to confirm the following if they're around. Mr. Stephen Mushiri from the Eastern African Farmers Federation. Kindly raise your hand if you're online. Also, Nega Ubene from Agra. If you're online, kindly raise your hand so that we may be able to make you as a presenter. I see. Welcome, Walter. Robin Walter, I think you're online. Welcome on board. Also, if there's a representative from Equity Bank, representing Priya Chana, if you're online, kindly raise your hand so that we may put you as one of the panelists to be able to speak. Also, I would like to confirm that I can see some comments on Dr. Margaret's presentation and some more suggestions. Kindly note we are noting those comments and we'll be posting the questions and the suggestion after this panel session.
Arrange a meeting with you because I am.
I kindly request all those who are not panelists to mute their mic. Okay, thank you very much. So now I would like to welcome Mr. John Mzinga, the regional coordinator of Eastern and Southern Africa Small Scale Farmers Forum, and Mr. Robin Walter, the manager of the German Agribusiness Alliance, who are our panelists today. You're all welcome to this session on building a resilient agricultural and food secure EAC. I'd like to start with the first question with Mr. Robin Walter. And the first question to you, sir, is how can Africa attract more investment in agricultural sector? And also, could you share some strategies or models that the German Agribusiness Alliance, that are used by the Agribusiness Alliance in Germany, that could be replicated in the East Africa region? Welcome, Mr. Robin Walter.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation today to attend this meeting. I think it was very interesting so far, and I'm very honored to be part of the panel today. And thank you for the questions. Maybe first of all, I would like to introduce our initiative. The German Agribusiness Alliance is actually a business association based in Berlin, and we are focusing on cooperation, private sector cooperation with countries internationally. And as the responsible person for Africa, I support our members in the private sector in specifically agribusiness in doing business with our partner countries in Africa. So that's like the broad framework for that. Our membership includes very large multinational companies that you might already know, like Bayer, BASF, but also quite a lot of medium-sized companies that in general in Germany also have a very global approach many times. Quite popular is the frame for that of German Mittelstand, which is usually providing innovations in specific niche that are required worldwide, and therefore bring in a quite high standard for that. And I think that is something that can very much change the framework for food security. And it has done that in Europe already, and I think it can be successful worldwide. Maybe to bring in the view of many of the companies that I mentioned as medium-sized but very specialized on specific niches in agribusiness or agriculture. For them, many of them are already doing business in Africa, and of course also in the EAC countries. Also some of them very successfully, but usually for them to invest money into those regions is not yet that very strong focus, as most of the African markets are still maybe too small for them, and also usually they like if those markets are too small, they'd rather maybe do some export business, but it doesn't add up for them to invest. So usually we have those very large companies, for example, as I mentioned, Bayer, that are already investing in countries like specifically in the East African region and Kenya, but also Ethiopia sometimes. So it always rather focuses on the already existing markets that are considered as stronger from the German perspective. So we have, for example, if we look at Africa as a whole, we have South Africa that is always seen as having a very advanced agricultural sector. So if companies are starting to do business in Africa and with countries in Africa, they'd rather start in South Africa, as it is the most profitable market, and with also the most turnover and therefore most valuable market for them. So I think what the EAC is doing, the aspect of regional integration, and also the extension of regional markets and also regional value chains, is really a really good step for attracting more investment in the EAC region from our perspective, and also to include the value chains is really important. I think that has been already mentioned a few times already today, to see that there is not only the farmer on his field and then he's going to sell his products, but also there's someone who produces the seeds, there's someone who produces the machines, there's someone like a financing institution that is behind all that and is supporting the farmers to get those inputs and machines. And then, of course, there's the whole value chain that comes after that. So the processing of the agricultural goods. So I think to have that holistic approach is very very important in that regard, as it allows also the farmers to increase the yields and also to get the capital by selling their products for buying better machines, better technology to continue doing that cycle in a way, if you can say it like that. So I think one other thing, in addition to regional integration, would be to support farmers to get that access. I think that's something the private sector can do, but also what international financial institutions might be able to do, and also governments are doing that already. So in many countries, I think also for your region, like Tanzania, for example, or Kenya, I think they and also some other countries, they're giving subsidies, for example, for fertilizers and so on. So I think that is also quite good, as it increases like the general it increases the incentive also for broader investment for the private sector to do. And you are asking also about successful synergies. And there is actually quite an interesting project that has been established, I think, already 3 or 4 years ago in actually in Kenya and Tanzania. There are 2 separate projects, also with partners, with local partners, and it is a public-private partnership project. So that's something usually our members are likely to do if it comes to doing business in countries they do not know so well for now. And in that case, it is on the modernization of agriculture, specifically focusing on mechanization and the usage of agrochemicals, specifically, as you already know. Of course, I think you're all part of the sector. It is really important to use to have the knowledge to use those kinds of stuff properly. And therefore, the one part of the project is also to add up the training, in addition to only focusing on bringing in your product, like a tractor and the machine that comes with it, or you bring in the pesticide. You also attach kind of the training to it. So therefore, the members that are included, which is also actually Bayer, and 2 other medium-sized companies you might not know so well, which are Grimme and Pöttinger, that are from Germany and Austria, respectively. And they are building a consortium. They're cooperating together. They're bringing in their products and work together with the German development KfW to finance the whole project together. And they are trying to build a sustainable project that is going to work in the long run. And also this would be a project that does not only lead to potentially lead to more investment, but also brings in some impact, as the training aspect is also very much present. So therefore, I think that would be one approach that I would propose in that area if it comes to replication, to see which partners can be involved, also get a local partner on board. I think there are many here that would be interested, of course, but then also start the cooperation and see how it's going. So it's always good to have a trustworthy partner on the ground, and that's one thing where investment builds up the best from the perspective of German private sector in that area. So I think that's enough for me now, and maybe we can continue with the next panelist. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Robin Walter, for the insights on the need of strengthening regional integration and opening up the markets and value chains to attract more investment into East Africa region and Africa at large. Now I'd like to welcome Mr. John Mzinga. And our first question to John Mzinga is that what are the obstacles faced by small-scale farmers in the East Africa region, and what are the solutions? And the third question is, we have had the presentation or the findings of the study on impact of food crisis, of global crisis on food security. So can you shed some more light on how the farmers are affected, especially small-scale farmers? Welcome, Mr. John Mzinga.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I think you can hear me. I'm speaking from the URT, and my name is John Mzinga. I work for the Eastern and Southern Africa Small Scale Farmers Forum. We are based here, but working in 16 countries in the Eastern and Southern Africa. So before I go to the obstacle and solution and how farmers are affected with the global environment, first of all, I would like to acknowledge the speakers. Very good that we had a very gender balance, that we had two very competent girls to present, women to present here. And some of the issues that they were spoken in the presentation among the solution that we want, or the proposition for the moving forward for the region. First of all, by the report of the, I don't know if it's published by the East African Bulletin on Food and Nutrition Security of August this year, we have about 57.2 million people who are food insecure in the region. And I think this is a very good report, and for policymakers and us in the business sector are moving forward, that we have a large market to ensure that we have food security in the region and beyond. And number two, in terms of malnutrition, we are still very high in the region. I think we have the DRC around 40% of malnutrition among children below 5, but also in Burundi, around 50%. In some countries like Rwanda and Tanzania, around 30, more than 30%. So the situation or the picture is not very good in our region. But moving forward, I'm very much going to talk about how are we not performing as far as the policy is concerned. Looking at the most recent report, Dr. Margaret talked about it, the CADIP, the Comprehensive African Agriculture Development Program, and particularly the 7 goals of the Malabo. The goal 6 is talking about enhancing resilience against climate related risks and shocks. And by 2025, we are to ensure that at least 30% of the people in the rural area, in the farms, livestock, are resilient. But we are not performing very well. It's just Rwanda and Burundi in the past report of 2021 that are on track. And I'm informed that the report that is coming out this year, to be read next year, is even worse. The region is not performing very well, and those are very major concerns. And so moving forward, what we would say, we are seeing like the major obstacle is that we have good policies starting at the global level, as Margaret talked about the SDG, coming to the region, the continental, we have the CADIP, which you are not referring to, but also in the East African, we have the East Africa Food and Nutrition Strategy of 2019-2024 is about to end, but very few people are aware on the same. And I was thinking that would be a benchmark in terms of discussion, how the region is performing as far as food security is concerned. So I think we need to look at those policies at the regional level, at the national level, as they are presented, but also the global level to ensure that we really perform in terms of food security in our region. So moving forward as a solution, number one is we would like to propose that smallholder farmers are also becoming recognized on the table when policies and discussions are taking place. And also smallholder farmers should be recognized as private sector #1 in the agricultural sector, but also should be recognized as researchers on their own right. I think if we start with that one, all other things that are coming in terms of financing, in terms of extension, in terms of rural development, land, and so forth, will be much more easy. But #2 is to ensure that we have I think we need to become much more serious when it comes to rural development. Rural development is ignored, and agriculture is primarily practiced in rural areas. And in rural areas, that's where we are getting our food and so forth. Of course, now we're talking about pre-urban agriculture, but I think it will take time to reach that level. So when we talk of rural development to be priority in policy making and policy implementation, even budgeting, we mean that we have to ensure that there is infrastructure, good infrastructure in the rural areas, particularly electricity. Electricity could be a starting point in terms of even processing at the rural area and avoiding post-harvest loss, which is about 40 to 30% in some of the region, in some of the countries. So we need to ensure that we have also rural roads and also irrigation system that is very good, and of course water harvesting systems in place. And also we need to ensure that we have also services in the rural areas. That's why we see a lot of migration. If there are small industries in the rural area, even the youth could remain there. So we need to see water, we need to see education, and we need to see good health services in the rural area. So that's number two. #1 is recognition. #2 is in terms of setting priority to rural development. And #3 is to ensure that extension service is good. In the rights report of Malabo, only Kenya was performing very good in terms of extension. So we need to enhance extension service in the rural areas and not focusing on crops. We need also to focus on fisheries or aquaculture. We need also to focus on agroforestry, like beekeeping. We need also to focus on livestock. So all the area and the extension should be covered. We don't need just one extensionist focusing on one crop like maize in the area, in the rural area. But also we need to see financing in the agriculture sector. Under the Malabo, we talked about the 10%, but unfortunately, no countries in East Africa was on track in terms of allocating 10%. Not only allocating, but also disbursing to the agriculture sector. Only Rwanda is trying with 6.8%, but very few in United Republic of Tanzania, about 1.6%, and South Sudan about 1.5% in the agriculture sector. Trade also is a problem, particularly for small cross-border traders. We need to look at it, and particularly informal traders, and create such environment that small traders can also cross the borders and sell their crops. Under the Malabo, also we are not doing very well as a region on trade. But also the issue of seed. Margaret talked about the local seeds. I think it's very important to focus on the local seed, but also to ensure that farmers have continued to have ownership on seed. And the entire thing now is to say, let we focus more on agroecology, that we have less chemicals in our soil, so that we don't pollute water, but also we not jeopardize the health of the people. Food is everything, but sometimes it is good, but sometimes can be bad if it's produced in a chemical-intensive environment. And the last point that I would like to make as a way forward is to enhance our early warning system. I think this also came from the presentation by Margaret. Is still weak. Early warning information system really should be going with the current environments that we have ICT everywhere. So once we have the early warning system, and even the weather information can help lead farmers in terms of moving forward and know what to produce, where to produce, what to produce, and when to sell and where to sell. I thank you, Patrick, for your time. I think that is my submission as far as the political environment obstacle solution. We are really affected by the global situation coming out of the COVID-19, where farmers could not go to the farm. and it was challenging also in terms of information. And maybe because we don't have more information, maybe more farmers died there and we don't have more information. Regarding the debts, I think our countries are affected. Maybe that's why they can't even allocate more financing to the agriculture sector. So our plea would be to our partners in the north and countries that we have more debts, to ensure that the countries are balancing between advancing particularly agriculture sector and food systems, but also paying the debts. As far as the war, we know that we are affected, but I think it's an opportunity, as we've noted, that we were importing more wheat from Ukraine and Russia, and also fertilizers, probably chemical fertilizers. So it's high time to see how we can come out with ensuring that we produce more wheat within the region and sell, and also ensuring that we produce good fertilizers that are good for our soils. Thank you very much. Over to you, moderator.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Joe Mzinga, for the expertise and the contribution which you have shared. I would like to keep you on board. Kindly remain online, and I welcome participants to ask questions as I prepare my colleague Brian to do a presentation on the online portal that we'll be launching today. So anyone with question, kindly feel free to raise your hand. And yes, welcome, Mr. Stephen. Welcome, Mr. Singh, to ask your question. The floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you very much for this excellent presentation and also the program by the EABC. My name is Bhupinder. I represent AgroZ, the brand for agriculture and horticulture under A to Z Textile Mills Limited. My question is that how do we control aflatoxin in the grains, especially maize and ground nuts? Thank you.
Thank you, Singh. Mr. Stephen Ogenda, you may unmute and ask your question.
Yes, thank you. Stephen Ogenda from Kenya. My major concern is none other than the depleted soil. Because we talk about agriculture, we talk about enhancing and producing good food so that we have a sufficient food. The rest, which is surplus, can be sold so that at the end of the day, the small-scale farm holder need food, and at the same time, he need money in the pocket. But we are not considering the soil in Eastern Africa that is highly acidic, that is bringing in the infestation of even fall armyworm, the striga weed, the whatever. How do we produce from the panelist where and how and who has the solution that can give us the solution to bringing back our Asian? We talk of orphan crops, but we are not talking about our orphan soil. How do we solve this, panelist?
Yes, anyone else with a question, kindly raise your hand. Okay, thank you very much. Maybe for the first question on the control of aflatoxin in grains, and the second question is on the depleted soil. What are the solutions of the depleted soil? And I'd like to ask Mr. John Mzinga if can answer the questions, and also Dr. Catherine Tindiwesi. I know you're an expert in agriculture. If you can also respond to the question. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I'm just a farmer. Maybe I'll just talk and then leave the doctors to explain more. In fact, about aflatoxin, on Kiswahili is called sumukuvu. I think is a new phenomenon, especially for farmers. Majority, they are not aware about aflatoxin. including ourselves. Of course, the first to hear about it was from the East African community. They had a workshop on this matter in terms of aflatoxin, and we could now relate how is it affecting agriculture, and particularly grains. Anyway, to my little knowledge, aflatoxin can come at any stage, starting from the seed, even when it's planted in the fields. How do we care, especially during harvesting and post-harvesting and handling and so forth, or even marketing? So aflatoxin can happen at any stage, and the challenge is that's the biggest challenge, how to control it. But experts are recommending that you can start controlling aflatoxin from when you are planting the seed, and particularly during the post-harvesting system, ensuring that there is enough, there is no moisture in the grains after harvesting, even during the handling, because once you handle in an environment that allows humidity, it's very easy for groundnuts and maize to get aflatoxin, which is very harmful to people, and you are not so sure of the rate of cancer now if is attributed to aflatoxin. So we need a more study on the same. But the recommendation from experts are saying you don't need to eat too much grains. You have to balance with other types of food, and that's the major challenge in our region, that we are not diversifying our food. That's why we have problems of malnutrition, but also some diseases that are alluded to food. Number two, in terms of soil health, I think this is a big question, a $1 million question, but it depends on how we are going to respond. If I respond as per ESAF philosophy, smallholder farmers, we say, let we venture more on agroecology, and that means that we use less chemical intensive types of farming in our agriculture. So we use much more manure. We use much more regenerative kind of agriculture moving forward, because you can use chemicals, and majority of the farmers sometimes we can smuggle in or use kind of fertilizers that is coming from the neighboring countries, that is of different soil, and sometimes our soil is not really tested as to which kind of fertilizer would be important. So we are encouraging farmers really to make sure that we use intercropping or agroforestry, sometimes mixing forests when doing, but also having those plants that can add more nitrogen in the soil, and avoid using a chemical fertilizer if is possible in that particular soil. But I think this is an agenda that we need to take forward as far as the soil health is concerned, because that is the beginning of everything. Thank you, moderator, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. John Zinga. I've seen a person has responded, is saying that also USDA has developed a safe product control aflatoxin from the field. The product is called Alpha Safe and is currently produced by A to Z company in Tanzania. So probably we may contact A to Z about more about this product. Dr. Catherine, do you have any addition to the questions asked?
Okay, I'll just add something small on the aflatoxins. I think as a region, we haven't done adequate research as far as the resistant varieties. There are resistant varieties of aflatoxins, but we always talk about drought resistant and other kinds of new varieties for crops. So that is an area that can be strengthened in terms of research and development. Also, if I look at the issue that has been raised on soil fertility, and with respect especially to the smallholder farmers, there could be investment and research in soil testing kits that are appropriate for smallholder farmers, because most of our soils are not tested. Someone just looks at the texture and the color and all that and decides what to plant, which of course does not give us the best yield. So that is an area that can be considered for further development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Catherine. Now I'd like to appreciate our panelists and our presenters for today for their valuable insights and contribution. And now I would like to welcome our consultant. His name is Brian, who is supporting us to develop the agri-investment profile and directory for the East African Business Council and the business community in East Africa at large. Brian, kindly can you present on the portal that you have developed? Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Patrick. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I go by the names Tim Brian. And first of all, allow me convey warm regards from Kampala and the team here at Sonnet that I will speak on behalf during this engagement. Perhaps briefly to introduce myself, I'm once again Tim Brian, the team lead at Sonnet. Sonnet is a software and applications based firm where we give support end-to-end software development services and consultancy services to our partners like the East African Business Council. And of this partnership, over the time we've had a cordial relationship in supporting one or two of their digital spaces. And my task today is to present before you a portal, an agri-investment directory and profiles portal that we were tasked to design in the best efforts to help the manufacturers, the farmers in the grain sector to be able to trade and share best experiences. And in the interest of time, I'll proceed to share the screen with you. Patrick, do I have rights to that?
Yes, you have.
All right, just a minute. Okay, so I don't know, are we able to view this page? Are we all viewing the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, so right before us is a link of the website. Maybe just to share it, maybe in the group. Patrick, maybe you could help me share it in the group such that people can follow the conversation. So before us is a presentation on the agro investments profiles and the directory. And this is largely intended to enable access to agro markets and investments opportunities for the end users. This is in the region. And if we scroll a little further down, we find that we have a display of the various investment opportunities and profiles in the EAC agro value chains. And this is largely picked from the various reports that were published during course of the project or during course of the entire engagements that EABC had and the respective partners. And under this, we have we speak about opportunities under the value, the edible oil value chain. We have the wheat grain value chain. We have the leguminous plants value chain. We have opportunities under the tuber and fertilizer opportunities. Below to this is we give an opportunity to the players in this sector an opportunity to get real-time information on not only opportunities that exist, but information that can better help them grow their businesses better. And so, yes, that's why we have a sector on agro investments opportunity updates. Then further below this, we have a section of verified agro product based distributors and manufacturers. So in this space, we believe that, yes, we have two different sectors of players. We have the manufacturers on the end that manufacture products, or that have that manufacture fertilizers and have products that are aimed for the end user. That's for the farmers. Okay. And so for this section, we basically profile some of the accredited business players that they farmers or other traders can reach out to. And of this, maybe just to clearly state, of this, we've integrated a chat. That's a P2P chat functionality, peer-to-peer. That's a one-on-one chat. So when you get to this section, you're able to initiate a conversation. For example, if I'm interested in having a conversation with Mandela, maybe because of the kind of products that they have, if I clicked on the direct message, I'll be able to initiate a one-on-one chat with the management, with the Mandela team, in the event that I need any products or services with them. So getting back to the next section, this is the genuine and verified agro B2B directory, where we say that, okay, even if someone is not a player, a manufacturer, but they are generally in the trade of this grains in the grain value chain, they are able to profile the businesses online, give a demo profile about the kind of products that they are selling or the cereals that they are trading in, and of this, want to have an help them, widen their scope, their market reach, and to be able to scale regionally. And yes, that's just a brief to that. And below this, we have a profile on some of the partners that are making this portal and initiative a success. And to this also, we share some bulletins on some of the achievements and the successes that we achieve. Maybe just to take us a little back to, excuse me, to the menu. We have the Agro B2B directory. So under the Agro B directory, I'll click to this. We have just a minute. Under the agro opportunities, I'll just open the links so I can go through them at once. Excuse me. So under this, sorry about the cough I have. Under this, we have the investment opportunities in the EAC agro value chains. And this, we give in a detailed profile about the different opportunities that our audiences might be interested in. And second to this, we have accredited East African agro manufacturers and distributors. Sorry about the cough. Under this, we have accredited East African agro manufacturers and distributors. So this basically profiles the different manufacturers that we have across the region. And purpose to this is not only to help them, build their market base, but we are trying to guide our farmers or our traders on which partners or which manufacturers they can either sell their products to or buy genuine agro input like the seedlings or beet fertilizers and all those kind of products from. And yes, this is just a brief about the products and the portal. This is a free to use portal. Currently, there is no fee attached to it. And listing on the profile is free of charge. And just also to categorically emphasize, we are on board to give support to any manufacturer or any trader that is interested in profiling on either the B2B directory or under the manufacturer and distributors segment. We'll be able to guide you on this process, because that's our task at hand. And yes, we welcome the opportunity to give you support, and thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the time that you listen. Thank you. maybe if you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them in. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Brian, for the good presentation. Could you maybe highlight the B2B function on the chat room so that people may know that they can actually chat once they fill their details, they can chat with the different business people who are there. Maybe if you can highlight that also.
All right, let me, I'll still use the Mandela. Let me use the Mandela Millers as an example. So of this, first of all, I'll distinguish. We have this widget on the right hand, the blue widget. So the blue widget is intended for people that wish to ask for support. If you have any request for a service, or if you need help profiling your products, or if you're having any challenges, this is the form that you fill in. But for purposes of persons that wish, let's say if I'm interested in reaching out to the Mandela Millers in Uganda about a particular product that they have, then I simply click on that and I'll be able to a conversation. Okay. So I am logged in as an administrator, so I am not able to have a one-on-one conversation, but this is how you have the conversations. So when you initiate a conversation, Mandela on the other side would be able to pick up on this. And where we come in to give quality assurance is that in the event that there is no response within, let's say, 6 hours from the time that the message is sent, a notification is sent back in for us, so we'll be able to reach out and help reach out to Mandela, informing them of an inquiry that was placed through the chat portal. And so to it, we want to give our assurances to whoever uses this platform, to our end users, that yes, we want to support you not only with the profiling, but also to make sure that your needs, your inquiries are placed in that regard. I hope I answered that, Patrick.
Yes, thank you very much, Brian. That was so elaborate. Thank you.
Okay.
So thank you very much, Brian, and all attendees for attending. Now, we are nearly in the last session of our program. I'd like to invite my colleague Dafa Frank to probably highlight some of the recommendations that have come out from this discussion today. So as you all know, we have the EAC Secretariat Director of Productive Sector who is actually online today, but is on travel coming back to Arusha and is online, but he couldn't speak online, but he's online listening to our conversation and is glad that we are having this discussion on food security. And he's committed to take up the communique or the key resolutions that will arise from the discussion. So Dafa, kindly maybe highlight the key recommendations that have arisen from the discussion, so that our participants can endorse them, and probably later we'll share with them the detailed communique for them to endorse further. Welcome, Dafa.
Thank you, Patrick. Hope my screen is visible. Is my screen visible?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. So based on the discussion so far, most of the recommendations can be categorized into two main parts. One is on impact of global crisis on food security and what measures we need to take as a region to address that. And the other part will be on the investment opportunities in agriculture value chain. So under the impact of global crisis on food security, the first recommendation that came out very clearly from this is regarding boosting food production and trade diversification, where all partner states and the key players, including private sector and development partners, have been urged to enhance and broaden agricultural production while expanding intra and extra regional trade. The other one is on improving food value chains. Partner states, private sector, and development partners should support farmers to minimize food waste and enhance access to nutritious food by streamlining food value chains and investing in post-harvest management systems. The other one is strengthening social safety nets. Partner states should ensure robust social safety nets to support vulnerable populations and mitigate food insecurity. Also, addressing inflation and affordability was very much stressed in this discussion. Partner states should mitigate inflationary pressures, but also there was a very clear statement from smallholder farmers that the debt also should be managed at the national level so that we can ensure there's adequate funding for agriculture. Another one was on infrastructure and climate change resilience. This one was stressed that the partner states, development partners, and private sector should invest on transport infrastructure and climate change adaptation measures to boost the food security. There was also a call for inclusive agriculture. Partner states, private sector, and development partners should address gender disparities to ensure equitable access to resources and opportunities in agriculture sector. But also there was a call that when we are doing the dialogues and the engagements for policy reform, there should be inclusivity in the sense that all small sector farmers and other private sector players should be involved. Enhance productivity and market access. Partner states, private sector, and development partners to improve agricultural productivity through better inputs, advanced farming technologies, and expanded market access. We should also stabilize our currencies. As the region, we know we are very much being affected by the global shocks and fluctuations. So we need also to stabilize as partner states to make sure our currencies are maintained so that we can also continue to have healthy economies. We should also monitor food insecurity. This should be in line with the implementation of the numerous commitments. I think they were mentioned in this meeting that we have commitments at the global level, continental level, and regional level, which needs to be addressed and to be implemented so that we can ensure we are food secure as a region. I think here also I will add the point that from the smallholder farmers, where he noted that the current policy at EAC is about to expire and there is need to review. We'll add that as the recommendation, but also the agricultural policy framework, which also can speak to the point that I just mentioned. There's also need to have harmonization of these measures for SPS and other health requirements, like it was mentioned by the questions from the stakeholders that there is need also to address issues of aflatoxin and soil fertility. I think we need to come up with standards as a region to ensure that they address those issues. On the investment part, there is technological access, partner states, private sector development partners to facilitate wider access of modern farming technology and practices. And I think this also speaks a lot to what Mr. Robin had said on the knowledge that needs to be expanded to farmers, that we will not only have equipments to be sold in the market, but to make sure also farmers have the adequate knowledge to use the equipment and the chemicals and the other technologies that will be availed to them. The other one is on infrastructure development. Again, for this one, we need to foster a lot of infrastructure development at the rural areas. I think this came out very clearly that most of the rural areas are dependent on agriculture, but there is inadequate infrastructure such as energy, services, including education and health, irrigation, storage. So there is need also to make sure these facilities are available at rural areas so that they can be able to produce effectively. We need to enhance post-harvest management. I think this one I mentioned earlier. Also on simplification of trade regulations. It has been well stipulated. Market access, we need to make sure that there is adequate cross-border trade and products can move with limited restrictions across the region. We need to build the capacity of farmers in these priority sectors to ensure that they are able to produce effectively and efficiently. We need policy reforms. So where policies are used as a hindrance, we need as partner states to make sure that in private sector, we advocate for policy reforms. And I think this also comes clearly with the inputs from Mr. Robin, who had said earlier that as our region and as we are integrating, we need also to make sure we create adequate investment incentives so that we can stimulate farmers to invest, but also we can attract similar investments from other countries that can boost the production in our region. Public-private partnerships, I think this also came very clearly that we need to have stronger local partners so that investors can have that assurance and security that they will have reliable people on the ground to carry on the investment that they bring into our countries. And the last one on research and development, I think we'll also add on this that it was very well said also by Dr. Catherine that we need to invest on some of the products that are more resilient, but also we need to invest on some of the kits that can facilitate farmers to test the soil, but also to make sure they apply the necessary supplements and agricultural practices which will make our region more secure. That is some of the highlights, and we will improve on this and we will share it as a communique from this meeting. Thank you, Patrick.
Yes, thank you very much, Dafa, for highlighting the key recommendations. We want to assure all participants that these recommendations will present them to the East Africa Community Secretariat for further action. So before we come to the end of our meeting today, I would like to urge all of you to visit the Agro-Investment Profile and Directory so that you may profile your company or your business or your organization there, and also engage in B2B chat with other actors in the agri-value chain. Also, before we come to the close of the meeting, I'd like to invite our Executive Director, if can share some closing remarks and a vote of appreciation. Then after his appreciation, we'll take a virtual photo, all of us. Welcome, Director, Executive Director, EABC. Hidayah. For those who are requesting for the report, kindly ensure that you have inserted your email or shared your email on the chat room so that we may be able to send you the presentation and the detailed reports that for today's meeting.
Thank you
CEO,
very much, Patrick. And allow me, first of all, to thank our partners, the GIZ SEQUA, and also appreciate our consultant, Dr. Margaret, Dr. Catherine, for the good work you have done, and all the panelists who shared insight on what we can do in terms of building resilience. It is very exciting, again, the region. I think what came out through this e-conference is that the tools are within our capacity. We can really use those tools, including ICT. It came out strongly that we need to use ICT in terms of agriculture. We need to advise farmers in terms of the seeds, the quality of the seeds. It came out strongly. But also it was highlighted that we need to devise an innovative financial mechanism. The current funding mechanism is not appropriate for the agriculture we want. So we need to come up with a funding mechanism for agriculture sector. And I think Joe made it clear that we are not meeting the CADAP and Marabo declaration targets. A few countries, I think Rwanda and Burundi, are doing very well, but other countries need to also to up their game in terms of meeting Marabo declarations. So I think Lila, the EABC, through our government's EAC Secretariat, our development partner, and our smallholder farmers association across the region, we need to come up with a clear and concrete recommendation that are emerging from this webinar, e-conference, in terms of moving forward. And I think some of the steps have been highly highlighted. We need to ensure that we address information, we advise, provide the right extension, agriculture extension services to our smallholder farmers. We need to address issue of post-harvest losses emanating from poor facilities infrastructure. We need to improve our storage facilities. We need to improve our agriculture insurance. So all these are very good interventions. I think what we need to do is really accelerating the action plans. It is urgent, and I think we need to work together. And again, allow me to continue to thank our supporter, GIZ Sekwa, and I can see my sister Lydia, coach, is still with us, and I want to really convey the appreciation for the continued support. So I think this is excellent, and we will continue to engage, of course, with the support from Sekwa and other development partners to ensure that the recommendations that have emerged are really implemented. We need to be action-oriented. So with that, allow me to take this opportunity again to thank you, appreciate you, and take opportunity to wish you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year 2024. And we believe that once we work together, we'll be able to find a solution from the current global challenges. And we can only do that through a constant and consistent partnership. Asanteni sana, and I really wish you a very good day and a good week. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Mr. John Bosco Kalisa. Now I welcome you all to turn on your cameras so that we may take a group photo. So Amoniche, have you been able to take the first shot? Kindly smile. Smile. Amoniche, have you taken the second shot? Gift, have you taken the shots already?
Yes, Patrick, we have taken the photos. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much to all of you, and we look forward to meeting you again in our next engagements. Thank you. Bye-bye.